largest opposition party has chosen the country's former president, John Dramani Mahama, as its flag bearer for the 2024 presidential election. Cyclone Mote has lashed the coast of Bangladesh and Myanmar, killing at least 3 people. Southern African country Mozambique is battling one of its worst cholera outbreaks in more than 20 years in the aftermath of Cyclone Freddy, which first made landfall in late February. Good morning. You're tuned in to Golfe TV Africa. Welcome to this news edition, the news in detail. Starting off from the national scene, the primary school educational system in Francophone Africa is similar to what is obtainable in France. This commentary gives a deeper outlook into the primary education system in Benin.
The educational system in Francophone Africa is similar to the educational system of France. Unlike the Anglophone educational system that moves from kindergarten to pre-nursery to nursery school in some educational institutions, in Francophone Africa, the first class a child is admitted into is called maternelle, known as nursery school in Anglophone countries. The children in maternelle are between the ages of 2 to 4 years old. From maternelle, the children graduate into primary school. In Benin Republic and other Francophone countries, primary school is compulsory for a period of 6 years. At the end of the 6 years, they write an examination called CEP, meaning Certification of Primary Education, and they get a certificate called Primary School Certificate. In French, it is Certificat d'études premières. In Anglophone countries, this certificate is called School Leaving Certificate. The minimum age required of a pupil to qualify for the Certificate of Primary Education, CEP, is 9 years, and unlike some Anglophone countries that students can write examinations in an earlier class, in Benin Republic, this is not obtainable. A child must follow the due process and write the exam in the 6th grade. The primary school system commences with CI, known as Primary 1, CP, known as Primary 2, CI1, known as Primary 3, CI2, known as Primary 4, CM1, known as Primary 5, and CM2, known as Primary 6. The pupil has to get to CM2, equivalent to Primary 6, before he qualifies to write the CEP examination. When the student succeeds, he moves into secondary school. In Benin Republic, students cannot be double promoted. They must finish the 6 years in primary school. The Certificate of Primary Education examination is over 20 and the cutoff mark is 10. The examination is held in the month of June every year. The CEP examination happens simultaneously in all the parts of Benin Republic in different examination centers. If a pupil fails the examination, the pupil has to retake the examination and repeat the class.
In Benin, weapons were found and the belongings of students at the University of Abonnez-vous on Friday, 12 May 2023, during an operation to evict students from the BIDB building. Now, this eviction operation wasn't welcomed by the students. More details in the report.
The day after the commemoration of 11th May 2023, a date dedicated to the memory of Bob Marley, the Open University and Social Work Center Abonnez-vous launched an operation to evict students from the BIDB building at the University of Abonnez-vous.
Cette situation-là, que je suis sûr vous avez déjà filmé.
I am sure that this situation has already been recorded and it has already been viewed, that the luggages of the students has been thrown out, and also the student has been asked to move out, according to the authorities. I know no students illegally lodge in the building, and the students assault their fellow students, disturbing the quiet and the peace of their fellow students. I believe that as an authority, there's an automaton Sankara situation that I used to brandish everywhere. As an authority, you have to be at the high level, which allows you to see very far. But as a leader, you have to be on alert at all times to know what is going on. Yes, the authorities has to know what is going on. But what is the suitable action that has been taken not to create another problem? I am here, just like you, to see that my fellow students has been asked to leave. Their doors broken. They were not brutalized. They were not violated. But where will my fellow students stay? As leaders, did they bother to find even a shelter for them? I would like that a census be carried out to know the students and non-students in this building. That has not been done before. An uncompleted residency inhabited by a group of students. On the campus, they denounced the action carried out by the officers of the police station of Abomey-Calavi on the instruction of the rector. It should be noted that during the eviction operation, weapons were found in the belongings of the resident students.
A fire ravaged the Zongo market in Parakou in the early hours of Friday, the 12th of May 2023. Several shops were consumed by the fire. Witnesses narrate their ordeal in the following extract.
It was here, and I saw how the fire outbreak occurred. It was the market watchman that alerted us, and I went to the house to tell my dad that the market is on fire. My dad does not have the firefighter's number, so he asked me. I told him to dial 118. He dialed the number, but there was no response. No one picked the call. They eventually came after some time. The firefighters did not come in time because the fire had already spread throughout the market, destroying shops and goods inside the market. The firefighters did the little they could do, but they did not come in time, so the fire had already consumed a lot of shops.
Puis en fait, bon, le feu n'a pas... Bon, il n'a pas pu maîtriser le feu. Attends.
En général, les jeunes et les jeunes filles. Parce qu'il y a...
Generally, the youth, both male and female, helped salvage the fire outbreak because there were a lot of market women when the fire outbreak occurred that were not in the market. Thanks to the help of the youth, both male and female, we were able to bring out loads, but there were some loads that could not be brought out because the owners could not recall where they kept their goods. There were also youths that were in the market just to steal. That was their major objective, to steal goods of people. The firefighters eventually came, but they came late. All we can say is that thanks to the help of the youth and also the population, we're able to salvage the situation.
Nous avons pu déclencher la situation.
Still on the fire incident at Zogo Markets in Parakou, several shops went up into ashes. The mayor of Parakou had this to say.
Parce qu'on ne peut pas prévoir ce qui est arrivé là aujourd'hui. On ne peut pas le prévoir. Même dans des marchés modernes, il y a souvent des incendies. Donc,
we cannot predict what happened here today. Even in modern markets, there are often fire outbreaks. But you would observe that the market was revamped because the market was more crowded than this. There were some parts of the market free enough to allow free circulation of goods and people. This is what may have facilitated the quenching of the fire. We will continue taking the necessary actions to salvage situations like this. Also, everyone needs to calm down because we need to thank God that when things like this happened, there were no casualties. There were only cases of burning down of goods and shops. What we must do now is tinker on the situation and know what to do thereafter.
D'abord, il faut remercier le Seigneur. Maintenant, pour le reste, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Nous allons nous asseoir à tête reposée et voir ce qu'il y a lieu de faire.
The victims of the fire incident cry out to the government authorities to come to their rescue and help them salvage this dire situation.
I was at the house when they called me to tell me about the fire. I came here and cried because I could not salvage any of my goods. God should save us. The government should help us. This is what happens to us in Zongo markets in Parakou. There are some that their shops burnt to ashes completely. We were able to save some of our goods, but nothing of importance. And our prayer is that the government should do what they can do for us to remove us from problem. They should come to our rescue. Look at what is happening. President Talon would pay us for all our goods that burnt to ashes. The firefighters did not come. It was just one that came. Everything is burnt. I do not even want to talk much. He will pay for everything.
Quand, au moment où les pompiers sont arrivés, c'est de là, nous, on a...
When the firefighters arrived, that is when we followed the lorries to help them drag the water hose into the market. At that time, I did not pay attention to my shop because I have 2 shops in the market. By the time I went to my shop, I could not do anything. Everything was burnt to ashes. There were many shops that were burnt to ashes. I cannot say the number of shops that burnt down, but it was a lot of shops that were actually razed down thanks to the fire outbreak.
Les gens sont encore dans le marché, ils n'ont même pas compté combien de boutiques il y a.
Ghana's largest opposition party has chosen the country's former president, John Dramani Mahama, as its flag bearer for the 2024 presidential election. Delegates of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, voted in primaries over the weekend to choose a candidate for both the presidential and parliamentary posts. More details in the reports.
Ghana's former president, John Mahama, casting his vote in his party's election primaries on Saturday. And the country's largest opposition party, the National Democratic Congress, has overwhelmingly chosen him as its flag bearer for the 2024 presidential election.
So flag bearer is moving to take for...
I believe that if NDC can power, most of the things which Ghanaians we want, NDC can come and do it for us. For instance, taking care of our children, taking care of the other side, give us a promise, which we look at it with that they're able not to do those promises. So I know that if NDC can power, by all means, they will turn to us, they'll look those promises back and say they'll do it for us.
Mahama was tipped by most political analysts to win the primary based on his experience and influence in the opposition party. They say he's likely to capitalize on the economic crisis facing the country in his presidential campaign.
I believe in John Dramani Mahama. He has been a president before. He has been a vice president before, and he's a communicator too. So there's no way the sitting president can do something for us. We've given him 8 years now, and there's nothing we are seeing now. But with John Dramani Mahama, he can turn things around for us. And that's why we believe in him. That's why we are here to vote for him.
The primaries come as Ghana holds talks with the International Monetary Fund over a $3 billion bailout to help it overcome the economic crisis, and as it faces a growing jihadist threat from neighboring Burkina Faso.
Southern African country Mozambique is battling one of its worst cholera outbreaks in more than 20 years. In the aftermath of Cyclone Freddy, which first made landfall in late February, the number of cases grew exponentially to over 27,000 across the country's 11 provinces. Cholera is a diarrheal disease that is usually spread through contaminated water and is especially dangerous to pregnant women.
Cidália João gave birth just days after Cyclone Freddy made landfall in Mozambique. Cidália's home village in Quilimane barely recovered from the storm when cholera took hold.
Cholera has killed many in this village. We would like the government to help us. We lack clean water and many things. Cholera killed many, and the cyclone damaged many things. Many people lost everything they had.
The country was in the midst of a cholera outbreak which exploded after Freddy hit. Crumbling water infrastructure was wiped out and swept into rivers, along with raw sewage from poor sanitation.
Kilimani is a low-lying city. It's a swamp, so the water tables are very high. So, and sewage and water were all, mixed. So that also brought a challenge in terms of trying to combat cholera, and people were fetching water from these contaminated water sources.
Many hospitals and clinics were also damaged, making it difficult to treat the sick. This emergency response hospital, set up by the World Health Organization, Doctors Without Borders, and the United Nations, was treating over 400 fresh cases a day. But things are now under control.
The bed was not enough because the number was very, very, very high. This is a case of success. We have below 20 cases in last two weeks. It means in 1 month from the out control of cholera outbreak, it became under control. It's not easy. I was working more than 18 hours per day.
Mass vaccination drives and community outreach programs have played a part in stemming new infections.
We see a theatre performance made by Group Teatro Os Retratistas, which is one of our partners here in Kilimani. It's not only to bring the vaccines, but also work with the community through different community platforms to create awareness and create demand for the vaccination.
Elsewhere in Mozambique, it still remains bleak as healthcare workers battle the worst outbreak in 20 years. More investment is needed to improve water and sanitation systems to rid the country of cholera entirely. Until then, millions of Mozambicans remain at risk when the rains return. Julie Shar, CGTN, Kilimani, Zambezi Province, Mozambique.
Cyclone Mocha has lashed the coast of Bangladesh and Myanmar, killing at least 3 people. Refugees camps in Bangladesh Cox's Bazar, home to more than 1 million Rohingyan, escaped a direct hit after the cyclone's path veered eastward. More details in the report.
Barreling into Bangladesh's southernmost town of Teknaf with 195 km/h winds, Cyclone Mocha made landfall. The most powerful storm to hit the Bay of Bengal in more than a decade, it tore roofs from homes, felled power lines and toppled trees. Authorities had urged hundreds of thousands of people in Bangladesh and across the border in Myanmar to seek shelter ahead of its arrival. Here in Teknaf, they hunkered down in a local school. But after the cyclone's passing, many left safety, only to find little to return to.
Thanks to Allah, because we worried the cyclone would be very big, but it had less impact. This could have been worse. Even so, many houses got damaged. People have no money and nothing to eat. Many of our belongings got damaged. I run a shop here. The shop has been blown away by the storm. I have a betel nut garden, but it has also been destroyed. I've seen the cyclones of 1991 and 1994, but today's was more dangerous.
Further north in the Rohingya refugee camps, home to more than 1 million people, no casualties were reported after the storm veered from its predicted path. But the heavy winds tore down over 1,000 bamboo shelters. Across the border in Myanmar, the cyclone brought more damage, with several deaths reported by authorities. With the storm moving further inland, locals are taking stock of the damage left behind.
I was very scared as I never experienced this before. I never witnessed such a strong wind in my 51 years. This is my very first experience with something like this. There were storms previously, but not as strong as this one.
Unfortunately for Myanmar and Bangladesh, both low-lying countries and home to some of the world's poorest people, experts say that climate change is likely to make cyclones only more powerful.
Around 200,000 people have been displaced due to flash flooding in central Somalia as the Shabelle River burst its banks and submerged roads. Residents of Beledweyne town in the Hiran region were forced out of their homes as heavy rainfall caused water levels to rise sharply. More details in the report.
Around 200,000 people have been displaced due to flash flooding in central Somalia as the Shabelle River burst its banks and submerged roads. Residents of Beledweyne town in Hiran region were forced out of their homes as heavy rains caused water levels to rise sharply. Sitting in a makeshift tent, Fatun Ali said she and her 8 children fled their home in the middle of the night when the water hit the town 4 days ago. The region's Deputy Governor Ali Usman Hussein said the number of people displaced could still rise, adding that they are doing all they can to help those who are affected. As families collect water, a water point in the camp, residents of the town described how they were relieved to have escaped with their lives. Many of them said they could only take the children.
Whenever the river breaks the banks, we flee. It's the 5th time we've fled and come here as an internally displaced people. They want food, as there's no one who takes and brings any food with their family here. Some 200,000 people are now displaced due to the Shabelle River flash floods in Beledweyne town, and the number may increase any time. It's a preliminary figure for now. It's a divine calamity. It was an unexpected disaster. We're satisfied with Allah's decree on us. However, we're doing all that we can to help those who are affected.
All their belongings were left behind. Officials say only 3 people died in the flooding. The disaster comes on the heels of a record drought that has left millions of Somalis on the brink of famine, with the troubled nation also battling an Islamic insurgency for decades. Experts say extreme weather events like this one are happening with increased frequency and intensity due to climate change in Africa, which contributes the least to global warming and is bearing the brunt of it.
To end this news edition, here's a recap of our top stories. Ghana's largest opposition party has chosen the country's former president, John Dramani Mahama, as its flag bearer for the 2024 presidential election. Cyclone Moke has lashed the coast of Bangladesh and Myanmar, killing at least 3 people. Southern African country Mozambique is battling one of its worst cholera outbreaks in more than 20 years in the aftermath of Cyclone Freddy, which first made landfall in late February. Here we conclude today's news edition, coming to you live from Golfe TV Africa. I am ITUNU. Enjoy the rest of your day.